I have it already built on another site already.
But this particular project, are you halfway through the design?
No,
Design development?
I would say that, you know, from a scope standpoint and an equipment size standpoint, I'd say we're past 90%.
Oh, you're past 90%. Okay, so you should have a pretty good idea based on 30 years experience and plus the fact that you're 90% done with the design on how much water you're going to use per day, right?
It's like I said, we're going to use between 200 and 250 gallons a minute.
Okay, so
I mean,
that's
I can't do that math in my head, minutes
okay.
times hours.
So you
But
will be
that's what it
using
is.
200 to
200 to 250
50 gallons
is where
per
I
minute
expect it to be.
every
Based on my
day.
experience.
Just a second.
Yep. all 24 hours a day.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But that's not
No,
including recycled water?
I've got a couple more. You got monitoring wells, you said.
That's right.
How many was it?
Six.
6? Okay. How deep are they? Are they
Generally-
varying depths or are they all the same depth?
Varying depths.
Varying
depending on
depths.
the existing elevation.
So maybe from 100 to 300 feet or?
I don't know if any of them are 300 feet deep, but they go well below the mine floor and into below, maybe a minimum of 10, 25 feet below groundwater.
Okay, okay. Roughly what elevation is the mine floor?
Roughly 10, 20.
And the driveway, for instance, where the property is now, going into the property, what's that?
Just check the plan sheet, make sure I get the right answer.
While he's looking that up,
Okay, and
the,
okay.
just to talk a little bit about those monitoring wells. Generally, that's not required. This is another
Right.
example of Jack going above and beyond the call of duty, based on my recommendation to go ahead and
Yep.
put those in to make sure that we had
Okay.
one, a baseline, and two, if we ever did have any issue, we would catch it before it got off the ground.
Right, well, that's terrific. If a neighbor would want a monitoring well set maybe near their water source or somewhere on their property, would that be in the cards from your perspective?
It's Jack's call, but I certainly wouldn't have any trouble. And
Well,
that's the whole point of,
yeah,
that's
you-
the whole point of having monitoring wells
Right.
is to try to create a catch, you know, to know that
Right.
you're not impacting that
Yep,
water.
and again, depending on how the depth of those monitoring wells, some of that water might sneak by you.
Yeah, you know, these guys they got pretty good hydrologists on their team. I
Yep,
think
I
that
understand that.
there's a little bit of difference between taking something out and putting something in. Right?
Yep.
So the high cap well is always taking material, you know, it's always taking water out.
So when you get done with the water, when it's doing its cleaning or whatever it's doing, what do you do with that?
We put it right back in, we reuse it,
You just recycle it,
we just recycle it.
So
We
you're-
just keep
so-
reusing the water.
but yet you use 250 to 300 gallons a day,
A minute.
per day.
We still have that makeup, because what happens is as you're going through that whole process,
Mhm.
water's evaporating.
Evaporating.
You know, and as the sand goes in the piles and goes through the dryer, it's
Mhm.
evaporating that moisture. So we're
Okay.
constantly evaporating, and it costs more to evaporate more.
Yeah.
So we got like a built-in incentive to totally try to keep reducing the amount of fuel that you need and how much water you're gonna evaporate. So you're constantly trying to, you know, make that smaller and smaller. As the mine develops and, you know, some of these ponds as the mine develops, that Phil mentioned, you know, we'll be able to hold more water. And then what we've seen in our past experience is that once that kind of happens, now we're picking up rainwater off of storm events, and we're able to have capacity to hold it, and then we're actually able to take some of that water and not use as much out of the high cap well. So that 250 experience, that 200, 250 experience that we've been seeing, generally that goes down over time because, one, we optimize the plant better and better over time, but the other thing is we're able to actually hold some water as that mine develops. In the beginning, there isn't any room for anything, it's tight. So I would expect that number to go down over time.
So the water, the 200, I'll be done here in a sec. One more question. And I might have more after that, but so the water that you use, 250 gallons a minute every day of the entire year.
It's not the whole year. We run the wash plant typically during good weather. So the concept is that, like last year, it was tough winter, so we didn't get as much done, we didn't get as many months, but typically I would say you're probably in that 8-month range, that you can run that wash plant.
Okay.
And it gets too cold and we just shut it down.
Shut her down.
And then now we have a big pile of sand that we feed through the plant all winter long. So the wash plant has a higher capacity, usually twice the capacity.
Did you have a question related
Well,
to this?
you kind of got answered there. All this, you've got runoff water, you have to adapt that into your recycle water.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. As the mine matures, we'll catch that stormwater and we'll use that before we take anything out of the well. But in the beginning, you just don't have enough room to capture it.
But you still gotta have the storm ponds in.
Oh, yeah, you gotta start with the storm ponds, but over time, you'll end up with even more. Like, imagine you mine out an area, Phil mentioned that we're gonna go down and start mining the south. They'll end up with a pond that's inside that mine area, that whole part too. In the first year or two, it takes time to develop it.
But you gotta have your recycle water get big enough to do what you need to do. Why can't you, it's already there, why can't you integrate that storm water right up now?
We do as much as we can. And if we didn't, we'd probably be more like 350. If we didn't catch any of that, it'd probably be a little more, than 200, 250. But over time, we'll be able to capture more because we're gonna have a bigger footprint. Then we'll be able to reduce what we're taking.
Dave, did you have a question?
What's the setback, or I don't know, right question, what's the setback from property lines? Before you can start excavating,
I think it's 50 feet.
50 feet?
Before you can start.
Is that, you're what, 200 feet deep off a hillside?
Well, you won't have a sheer wall, 50 feet down. We'll look at that overburden, and the overburden, generally will have a slope in the overburden. And then from there, we'll be benching. And because you have to have road access to each bench, it's more like, kind of like a set of stairs going up to a slope, and then, so your actual mining would be, a little farther.
What kind of slope you put from 50 feet?
So you got in?
The finished slope is actually gonna be a 3-to-1 maximum, so, but.
Finished slope. I mean,
Finished slope.
I mean,
When you're
you
mining,
take the dirt out,
it kind of
we
depends.
see landslides now, you were talking
Well-
300, you probably, from the highest point to somebody's property line, that'd be 250 feet, wouldn't it be that high? 200 feet? I don't know. You know?
That again refers back to what John had said about your shear wall. I mean, you're gonna be doing it in steps, and those steps will be based on the stability of the rock itself.
Do they reclaim that then, or build that back up again, or
Yeah,
to
that gets built
almost
back up.
original level, or what?
No, that 3-to-1 slope down to where it's reclaimed.
So if we're 100 feet overall high, we're gonna be 300 feet out, and then slope back.
That would be the maximum.
Right.
Just a second. Mr. Green?
Is there any consideration for landowners on, say, like the east side, as far as like planting trees or something to screen off along Adams Road?
Absolutely. I think that in a lot of the operations we've done in the past, sometimes it's more effective to, go plant a few trees on your property because they're close to you. I can't see past mechanic right now, so that's a more effective block than putting them sometimes on the mine site. And I think that's just best practice. I don't think Jack would have any trouble with that. In my past, we've done a lot of those kind of things. What we do is this, okay, when we get one of these operations going, we develop a community council, excuse me. So what we do is we try to find some folks that are impacted by the operation that are close by. We take and add a few public officials to that, try to get a good mix of people that understand what's going on in the community, and then we meet quarterly. So we go in and we tour the whole site, we sit down and spend a few hours, go through all the different concerns that people have. And what we do is we constantly try to figure out how are we gonna optimize, how are we gonna make less of an impact and make it better. And I can tell you, I ran a lot of operations over the years, a lot bigger operations than this, and And that community council, to me, has been an absolute best practice for reducing the overall impact the operations have on the community. Because we're not seeing the same things. You know, you might say, hey, can you adjust some lighting? You know, and it's real easy for us to go adjust some lighting, or hey, I'm hearing some noise I didn't hear before. Is there something you can do about that? So the more communication we have with the community, the more effective we are of mitigating any of those impacts.
I think it'd be a lot more beneficial for us as a landowner not to have to plant trees on our property, though, if you keep them on the mine site.
Well, we'll do that, but I'm just saying, if when requested, I've had some people that are, you know, they're off the property on the hill looking back at an operation, not this one, but, you know, another operation, and they said, hey, you know, do you mind, you know, planting some trees, you know, on my, I don't actually do planting, you hire a landscaping to do it, but, you know, do you mind, you know, putting some trees in here, so that way, you know, I'm not looking straight into here. You know, we've done that in the past, I think it's a smart move.
And then I guess on the reclamation plan also, you really didn't talk about any elevations. I mean, all you said is ag. I mean, what's the slopes? I mean, is it gonna be a ridge back there, or is it gonna be flat ground, or?
We have a slide that I didn't even jump to, so you are correct, I did totally
Thank you.
not talk about
I
that.
think when he put my slides in, it jumped ahead of his slide.
Bring up a couple here.
And is there a reason there's no trees going back on the site?
What's that?
Is there a reason there's no trees being put back on the ridge?
You know, I think we probably will be planting some trees on some of the slopes. What this exhibit shows is the final grading for the entire site, what it would look like when we finish grading. You know, you had a question here about, you know, here's one of those locations where we're 50-foot setback. And again, that 50-foot setback is not going to be disturbed, other than maybe we'll put some berms in there for screening berms. That's the top of the mine. So we've got a 50-foot setback, here's the property line, 50 feet in from there, that's where we'll start mining, and that's where John was talking about. Okay, then if we're very deep, high wall, we will step that down. And again, the top of that is gonna be 50 feet inside. Now, when we go to reclaim that, where these, you know, it looks pretty much all orange here, if you came up close, there are contours. This is basically, this would be that maximum 3-to-1 slope down to the existing ground, and then these contours would be basically the mine floor that as we build up. We'll come to a cross section in a minute. That's what these black lines, I'm going to bring up a couple of those, and again, a cross-sectional view looking across that, and that exhibit that I'll bring up in a minute will give you an idea of what's happening. That first exhibit I showed those yellow flow arrows. One of the things we want to do when we reclaim this is maintain the pre-existing drainage pattern. So, you know, these contours, right now, the existing ground, there is kind of a ridge, a high point through here, and these contours are showing that it's draining to these natural drainage areas. Here's that wetland that was shown on the side, this drainage way that way, drainage way here, here, and here. And so this has been designed so that when we reclaim that, again, maximum 3-to-1 slope, and then returning the open areas to ag land, but that ag land will drain to where it's draining now to these natural drainage patterns. And just jump ahead and show you a real quick cross section that will give you an idea of, show those 3-to-1 slopes as well as the mine floor. Here's, the green is basically the mine, and in this exhibit, we didn't show any, step down. We've just shown it as a vertical wall, but in reality, that high wall, it will be stepped down to ensure a safe high wall. This is at 1020 elevation, which is the bottom of the resource. So again, just shown as a flat level line. And again, this section, this is AA, that's one, I believe it was going north-south, looking across. And then here's that maximum 3-to-1 slope, also have one here. And then this is basically the contour of what the finished grade would look like. Existing grade at that location was up here. finish grade with bringing back the overburden, bringing back the reject material, and then up on top, the B horizon and the A horizon, and then seeding that down with a pasture seed mix. This other section, it goes across, there was one location of those drainage ways, is right here, flowing through, collecting stormwater and running off that way. So again, 1020 is the mine floor, these green lines. Red line is the approximate finish grade as we bring back the overburden, bring back the reject sand, put the B horizon and A horizon on top of that. Existing contour at that location, and then proposed contour here. And again, the top of that hill pretty much matches the top of that. This one all drains that way. This one draining off this way, draining off that way. So again, maintaining the existing drainage patterns in our reclamation. Here's just a couple more sections. Again, finish grade after reclamation, matching the drainage patterns, draining off this way, draining off that way, the same thing there. So I don't know if that answered your questions as far as the final reclamation.
Could you tell, please, for those, we can't read
Just a
the numbers
second,
up there,
just a
what are
second.
the,
Marie,
what's the
Marie?
finish?
No, I'll acknowledge you before, if you want to start talking, please raise your hand, okay? Go ahead.
We can't read the numbers up there, could you please give us the the existing elevation and the finished elevation?
I don't know, say this point here, I can't read the numbers either, let me just grab put those boards up there.
They're over here. Oh, not the section. Sections are not here.
Again, depending on exactly where you're looking, existing elevation at this point is up around 1150. Proposed at that point is about 1080. Again, matching where we come in at that 1022 elevation on the edges, and again, gradual slopes in the pasture area where we are matching in a maximum slope of 3 to 1. So I'm good.
Any other questions?
When we have a finished product, how is it going to be moved off-site to rail or truck, conveyors?
Yeah, it'll be truck.
Dwight?
Do you provide assistance if an adjoining landowner's well goes dry as a result of your mining operation?
Yeah.
Do you drill a new well and help out with that?
Yeah, we're mining above the water table here, so we shouldn't have any impact at all on your wells. And we're in a completely separate aquifer where the high cap oil is. But I will tell you, as a best practice, that's one of the reasons we want to get these monitoring wells in, is because we'll measure that water level. And if those water levels do drop because of our activities and do impact your well, then we should be able to see that before you have a problem and anticipate it. And yes, participate in solving that problem. So yeah, I've ran many mining operations that going in, we knew we were going to impact wells. And the best way to handle that is being proactive, not waiting for a well to fail, and then, because they charge you, usually it'll happen on a holiday or a weekend, and then,
So it
charge
has
you a lot
happened.
more. Oh, sure. Mining operations all over the country, if you go and you mine, and you're in the water table, you'll have an impact on it. Luckily for us, we're staying above the water table, so we don't believe we'll have any impact at all on this operation.
High capacity wells, those are monitored, and the permits come through the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. So that's who they have to apply for, and they have to do the reporting also on how much water they're using on a regular basis.
There was a reclamation plan that was done before that was presented, and they were showing slides. One of these slides showed a 30-foot, 40-foot tree, and they said that this was a reclamation area already. And to my knowledge, there was no reclamation of any of these here sand mines or what they were doing after they were gone. And then after that, I asked him where he got this photo at and which mine it was. And I'm pretty sure you were right here, he was showing it. He had no idea where that picture came from. And the idea is that, you know, there was no reclamation pictures or any plan out there that you guys have done, that anybody has done to reclaim these sand mines.
Excuse me.
Have you seen it? No.
The Badger Mining Corporation in Taylor, Wisconsin has been operating since 1978. I do an annual inspection of their site. They do have reclamations that occurred on hundreds of acres right here in Jackson County. Whether they have trees that are 30 or 40 feet tall, I can't say that.
Oh, no, that was pictured
Right.
in the
But I'm just saying
presentation.
that there is reclamation that does occur, and it is successful here in our county.
My question has two parts. I grew up in an area in Illinois where they did coal strip mining, this is basically the same thing. What is your timeline for reclamation on these sites when you move from site to site? And then also, you say it's going to be returned to agricultural. All that land there that's been reclaimed is too rocky to be farmed. You know, how are you going to return this to farmable land? It's only going to be suitable for pastures, or the land there's so many big holes, craters, that they're only for recreational use, and it's not agricultural.
Yeah, I'm not sure what our percentage of agriculture availability after the project is, the other stuff, but there are large differences between, you know, coal mining and this type of mining, but I think that, you hit me with two things. Which question? Could you give me your
The first part of my question was, when are you going to start this reclamation when you move from site to site? Are you going to start it immediately, or is this something that you're going to say, oh, we'll just wait a year or two and let it just fill up with water, and then we'll have some more water to use and we won't have to take it out of the water table? What are you going to do?
The way it works is there's a built-in incentive, because they have to have a bond. Jack has to post a bond to make sure that the money's available to reclaim the property. So if Jack goes out of business, then the government will have the bond, and they can go in and do the reclamation themselves. So what that means is that the bond is expensive. So what we do as a general practice is we try to minimize the open area as much as we can. So because it costs more, you know, we'll start mining an area out. It takes a while. It'll take a couple of years, and at some point, depending on how well sales are going, if sales are going really good, it'll happen faster. If they're going slower, it'll happen a little slower. But basically, you'll remove that sand, and then as soon as you possibly can, without covering up the reserves, you want to start reclaiming. Because if you don't, you're going to end up with a bigger area that's open, and then the rules are that you have to have a bond for all those open acres. So it's going to be spending a lot more money if you don't keep that as small as you can. And that didn't happen on accident. You know, over the years, that's kind of evolved into this is how we can protect ourselves if somebody doesn't do what they're supposed to do. The money's available to get it done.
There's a couple of things to that also. I can't speak, of course, what happened in Illinois, but what he said is accurate. It is in the best interest of the company to reclaim as fast as possible, because just what he said, the financial assurance is based on the amount of acres that are open and being mined. So their bond, irrevocable letter of credit, whatever that is, that escalates. So there's a cost to that. They have to deal with the stormwater. There's more stormwater problems or potential that they have to deal with in making sure that they control all that water coming off from that site. So it's still in their best interest to make sure that they reclaim that. Now, I can't tell them that they have to have only so many acres open or closed at the same time, but there are a number of things financially, it's in their best interest as well as environmentally, to not have any more acres open up than they really need to operate.
I understand that, but you're saying the financial, but what happens if the company decides to sell to another company and that company goes bankrupt, like in Blair with Preferred Sands and that wind sand and all that? What's gonna happen then? We're gonna have these big holes in the ground, and what's gonna happen?
There's a financial assurance that has to be posted with Jackson County that stays with that property. That is available for the county to utilize.
But is it gonna be enough?
That's part of my responsibility to make sure when they post that it is enough.
Gets adjusted. If the mine gets bigger, then mine gets, grows, gets bigger.
How much of that determines whether, how much of that runoff water you can use? If you wanna get in there and reclaim that, so it don't cost you so much to post the bond, is that gonna make your runoff water availability less, so you take more out of the ground? Because you got the supply in the ground, you're not gonna worry about that, you're gonna worry about paying off your bond.
I really don't think so. I think that what happens is that we're taking steeper slopes and making gentler slopes in the end. So all those slopes are still coming in. So as we reclaim this, everything's still coming into the property.
You don't figure on losing anything by reclaiming it.
No.
Because I can understand you want to
Yeah,
reclaim.
you want to
but
reclaim it as fast as you can, but it's still, as you're reclaiming, you're still sloping back onto your property.
That 250 gallons though, you said that was 250 gallons an hour?
A minute.
Have you ever run out of water?
Well, we put it well, and all that work has to be done ahead of time.
And you know there's gonna be enough water there that has no line.
Well, they've used the hydrologist to figure out in that aquifer what's available. And that's, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's not very good water.
Doctors have sold pills too, that 5 years later, lawyers are trying to get you
Yeah.
to sue them.
I haven't had the experience that the hydrologists were wrong, so.
And remember that there's a permitting process, that does go through DNR, they are reviewing, we have to do drawdown studies, we have to make sure the aquifer can handle that kind of work.
Have you ever run out of water? What would you do if you did?
I don't know, it depends on the where and the situation, I guess.
Sheila, you had a question?
I do. It's not a question, it's a complaint about this public notice. It said that this public notice that this hearing is for the reclamation plan. Hardly anything's been said about the reclamation plan, but a lot has been said about the sand mining operations. The people didn't come because they thought we were going to talk about the reclamation plan, and only the people who could speak on the reclamation plan were the ones that lived within 300 feet of the boundary. So by this public notice, you have limited the number of people that can be here today, and that's just not fair.
I see. Anybody else have questions?
Is the bond something that's on paper so that folks can review that? So it's something that they can look at?
I have it here in the county holds that. It's public information.
So they need to request it?
Yes.
Okay.
And you'd get a copy of what it is. David?
Back to what was said about
So what's Dave?
Dave Ernst is going to talk first. Just a
Oh.
second.
You got wetlands right bordering the, actually it's within 200, well, the new federal laws are, they want you, gotta stay, well, tiling anyway, within 200 feet of wetlands. The new law is coming in effect. I think that's what it was, but they're talking about a dam there on that wetlands. There's an awful lot of water. I don't know if they're planning on damming the wetlands up or not, but there's an awful lot of water comes down through that valley. I would say it would be as much as a Trempealeau flows daily on a flash flood basis. And you know, you say 100 year, this happens maybe every other year. This is really a high water area in there, and they're building pretty close to that lowland right there. I don't know if they're far enough away from your wetlands there, unless they build it up. I suppose they'll build it up.
They're required to make sure that they're outside of any wetland area. If they do go within the wetland area, they have to apply to the Department of Natural Resources for any permits. As far as a 100-year storm event, that's well beyond what they are required by the Department of Natural Resources to build their stormwater discharge ponds to. It's awesome that they are doing that, but that is not a requirement that they have to go that large. So the fact that they're doing so, environmentally, it's better for us if they are.
I got a question about, okay, you said they were gonna be trucking the sand, and we had a meeting on Monday at the town hall, and they said they were gonna be conveying it, so would that conveyor be part of the mine area since it'd be connected, or would that be not part of
answer
it?
that question. Yeah, I was one that spoke at that meeting, and what I specifically said is that our initial intent is to go ahead and truck, and that we have land that we required, or have options for to potentially convey it. And what I specifically said is that there's still milestones that we have to meet in order to convey it. So until those milestones are met, we're going to truck. So that's what we're initially doing for the first couple of years. Hopefully we can re-examine that as time goes on.
If you did end up conveying that, would that be considered part of the mine area, and would the reclamation plan be applicable?
Yes, that is correct. If it's connected to the mine site, wherever that conveyor would end, the conveyor, the property that it's on, and if it's a rail siding or some type of other loadout, that now becomes something that they have to have a reclamation plan on. They also have to provide a financial assurance, not only for the mine site, but that area that's conveyed, as well as a loadout or a rail or whatever part of the other at the other end of that conveyor.
Would that have a 50-foot setback for any mine equipment also from neighboring landowners?
I don't have there's no setback in our ordinance on that. That would be up to them to decide what it would be adequate.
Which would be the main thoroughfare coming? I mean, obviously, if you truck it, what exactly, what roads would be from the access?
I guess I want to try to respect the process for this meeting. The trucking, there's going to be some additional, there's got to be like a road use agreement, some additional meetings, public meetings to deal with all that. It's, so I don't know if any of that stuff's finalized at this point, Jack.
As it relates to the reclamation plan right now, we're not talking about the road uses that we have. We have to have a road use agreement within the township's current and any other townships or villages that might be affected. And I was making presentations on that this last Monday, and we have to come back, takeaways from those meetings, that I have to go back to the township current, to then have the appropriate road use agreement and some of the terms that they had asked for within it.
Okay. How many mines are you actually operating in Wisconsin now?
So,
Yeah.
that's why I've hired professionals to go ahead and be both the designers, the builders, and the operators of that.
Okay.
Go ahead. You have a question?
I forgot to ask you how much the bond is for.
That has to be yet to be determined. It's based on the area. Before they would start, they have to have a permit issued from the county, and in that discussion, they would have to tell me how many of those phases that are listed in that plan are they going to open up, as well as the processing area. So all of those things are included in that acreage calculation.
Got it. So the county will determine this in its future permit. And then, I wonder if there is a site that you could advise people to visit that you've worked on? That you could say, hey, take a look at my work at this site?
Yeah, I've built several facilities up here. I built smart sand facility in Toma. I built the Superior Silica operation in Bloomer, drag plant in New Albany. I built the mine site there in Arcadia, Mississippi Sand. So that's Mississippi
Mississippi
Sand in
Sand?
Arcadia.
Okay.
So and then there's several other projects that we've worked on over the years. Like I said, my company's been supplying this industry since World War II, so we've got equipment in Badger and all over the place.
Thanks.
Yeah, the smart sand facility that you said was at Toma, is that the one they call the Oakdale one?
I don't know what they call it.
Okay, it is.